friends, welcome back to my channel. Today, we're back at it again with another fact reading video. I know that these are some of the most popular videos you guys enjoy, so I scoured the internet, and today we're going to be reading even more interesting video game facts. Because number one, I find them fascinating, and number two, you find them fascinating, and number three, you find them relaxing. So we're just gonna start and just jump into it. Here we go. Sonic the Hedgehog isn't the only name of Sega's Speedy mascot, but also a gene on chromosome 7 of the human genome. Well, it was until recently when the science community decided to ditch all of its comedy names for genes. Party poopers. And these are quite lengthy. Some of them are quite lengthy, so these won't be just quick, rapid facts, so prepare yourself. And I will also be speaking softly. I will alternate between whispering and soft speaking, so that you're aware. Matt Damon refused to appear in the recent Bourne Conspiracy game because he thought it was too violent. Not fussed by the violence in the films then. Eh, Matt? Ever wondered what happened to Leon's cool leather jacket in Resident Evil 4? It inexplicably disappears after the scene in the village. Well, on the PS2 version, go through Ada's side quest and one of the Ganado villagers will be wearing it. In the early stages of its development, Half-Life 2 featured a friendly alien that would follow Gordon Freeman around, feasting on the bodies of his fallen enemies. It was taken out when Valve discovered that the AI would be too difficult to convincingly program. In 1986, Nintendo released a special disk system peripheral for the NES in Japan. Among its features was a microphone in the controller, which certain games used, including an updated version of the original Zelda. You could only destroy a certain enemy by shouting into the mic. It's pretty cool. Some of these features, we're just getting them now. We're just like, wow, this is pretty cool. But, it's amazing how, some of them were implemented so much earlier than you would think. The famous awful E.T. game for the Atari 2600 actually sold more than its most famous game, Space Invaders. E.T. sold 1.5 million, while Invaders only shifted a million. I believe, and I think this was something I talked about in a previous fact video, if I'm not mistaken. But there was the movie was so popular that it led to a lot of hype for the game, and so people bought the games. Obviously, back then you couldn't actually go online and see reviews or see people play the game, so no one knew how bad the game was actually going to be. So that's what ended up happening. So the fact that it sold that much doesn't mean it's a good game. It just means it was a highly anticipated game. And that happens today as well. Even with bad reviews, people still will buy the next Call of Duty. I'm guilty. I just bought it recently, getting it delivered on Sunday. But, it's fun. Whatever. A boss character called Binbag was removed from Rockstar's Manhunt early in its development. He was a psychopath wrapped in black refuse sacks. Lovely. And if you've ever played that game, it's a really weird game where basically you run around trying to murder psychopaths and serial killers, murderers, and mentally unstable people that are serial killers. It's a weird game. I played it when I was 13, 14. Probably shouldn't have been playing that kind of game at that age. Rockstar also removed a character from Grand Theft Auto 3, although this time it was said to be because of the terrorist attacks on September 11th. He was called Darkel, a homeless guy who'd get you to rig buildings with explosives. Yeah, but I've played many Grand Theft Auto games, and they all have explosives, and they all blow up buildings and cars, and But if I don't know when Grand Theft Auto 3 came out, maybe this was right on the cusp of right off the cusp of September 11th. So in that case, it would make sense. In the video game sequel to John Carpenter's seminal sci-fi horror film The Thing, the legendary director made a cameo appearance as a character called Dr. Faraday. He also oversaw the production of the game to make sure it was faithful to his original vision. In Pilot Wings 64, the character Lark is actually the mascot for famous American games magazine, Nintendo Power. Nestor. His name was changed last minute, probably because PAL gamers wouldn't know who he was. Oscar winner Marlon Brando recorded dialogue for EA's Godfather game shortly before he died, but it was deemed unusable due to the bloated Thesp's aging, mumbly voice. Instead, they hired in a sound-alike. What a waste of money, eh? Vivendi's underrated Scarface game also featured a sound-alike, but this one was personally chosen by Al Pacino himself, hence the spot-on likeness. His name is Andre Soglioso, and he's a veteran video game voice actor. DJ Atomica, the some would say annoying announcer in Burnout Paradise, is the same guy who provided the commentary for SSX3. In Paradise, he makes reference to SSX several times, suggesting it's supposed to be the same character. And I know that, obviously there's a lot of facts here that are going to go over some of your heads, and that, I listen to a lot of ASMR videos, fact reading videos, video game fact reading videos, where I'm just, a lot of the facts I'm not familiar with, whether it's the game or the fact itself, but I think it's all for the purpose of relaxation, so I enjoy anything video game related. I enjoy whether I'm familiar with it or not, so it just works out for me, and I hope that's the same for you. The little sisters from BioShock didn't start their life as little girls at all, but rather tiny mole-like creatures who scuttled around Rapture collecting Atom. Early concept art also shows them as retro 50s styles robots too. We think they made the right choice. Yeah, I actually have all 3 of these games. I bought them as a pack from Amazon, and I have not played through the first one even. I started playing it, but I stopped. So I have to get back into it, because it's a really good game, so I've heard and so I've been told. So I'd like to actually get through it. UK Radio 1 DJ Chris Moyles was an enemy in the game spin-off hit TV show 24. He played an Eastern European terrorist who Jack Bauer found himself fighting at the end of an early level. It was only his face, however. The voice was provided by another actor. Another unlikely celebrity cameo is UK chat show host Jonathan Ross, who starred in Halo 3. He supplies the voice of one of the Marines who helps Master Chief. Although it's very rare that one of his lines comes up, it's a totally random and rare occurrence. The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. The advisor from the SNES Super Nintendo version of SimCity, Dr. Wright, appears in a house. He's named after Will Wright, the creator of the Sim series. In Fallout 2, there's a hidden room in Junktown, in the Cafe of Broken Dreams, where you can find Dogmeat, the Vault Dweller from the first game's faithful hound. In the original Super Smash Bros. Melee, The Princess Daisy trophy had a mysterious third eye on the back of its head. Unfortunate glitch or something more sinister? Ooh. Sony's beautiful monster toppling adventure game Shadow of Colossus was originally going to feature groups of characters on horseback working to take down the Colossi cooperatively. This proved too taxing for the PS2's hardware, sadly. Let me just go to the next page here. There are currently over 100 million Game Boys in the world, both the original and the color variant. 32 million of them are in Japan, and there are 44 million in America. Awesome. Yeah, I don't have one. I don't have mine anymore, sadly. Probably gave it away in a garage sale like a stupid idiot. Before they settled on its unique painted look, the developers of Okami Clover originally intended the game to look realistic. You can unlock a concept video of this by finishing the game. It was changed because the PS2's hardware wasn't sophisticated enough. Online gaming isn't as recent a development as you may think. In the 90s, a modern peripheral called the Stellaview was released for the Super Nintendo. It let gamers download gaming news and specifically designed games. They were mostly remakes of retro classics. Nintendo was ahead of its time. Early iterations of Nintendo's failed Virtual Boy console included a gun you'd set vertical on a flat surface that would project a 3D image into the air. GoldenEye's famous brilliant multiplayer mode originally contained 3 Bond actors as playable characters: Sean Connery, Roger Moore, and Timothy Dalton. Their data was left on the cartridge, but you couldn't select them without using a cheat device. Namco developed a special PS1 controller to be used with Ridge Racer Type 4. It was called the Jog-Con and had a wheel in place of the analog sticks. In critically panned Crime Caper Driver, there was a Hawaiian shirt-wearing character called Timmy Vermicelli, a clear parody of the star of GTA Vice City, Tommy Vercetti. The character wore swimming bands, poking fun at the GTA's heroes' inability to swim. That's funny. Yeah, I think in the game you die if you jump in the water. So, but it was my favorite Grand Theft Auto though. So, hey. And Grand Theft Auto 3. One mission you saw chasing a badly and animated, in the words of Asuka, character called Tanner, who bore more than a passing resemblance to driver lead character of the same name. The PS1 was originally planned as a Nintendo console, with Sony set to design its electronic components. When Nintendo ditched the project, Sony decided to make a console anyway. The death screams of the bad guys in the original Golden Axe are digitized from the screens used in the films First Blood and Conan the Barbarian. Star Fox Adventures originally started life as Dinosaur Planet, a game developed entirely by Rare. It starred a blue fox called Crystal, who later became part of the Star Fox crew. The damsel in distress that Mario rescues in the original Donkey Kong is called Pauline. In the Japanese version, she was known simply as Lady. Guitar Hero, Aerosmith wasn't the wrinkly rocker's first video game appearance. In 1994, they starred in an on-rails shooter called Revolution X, where you had to rescue the band from kidnappers in a dystopian future. No, really. In Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, a scene was removed from the final game, where Snake is chased through the sinking tanker by a rush of water. Kojima said it looked good, but it wasn't fun to play. Footage still exists of this in early trailers. The first Western-developed Xbox 360 game to break into the top 10 of the Japanese game chart was Gears of War. It made its debut at number 7 after selling 33,000 copies. It charted in January 2006, over 2 years after the Japanese launch of the console. Attacking the fat, black pig on Outset Island in Legend of Zelda, Wind Waker will eventually cause it to attack. It's 100% inevitable though, so watch out. Mega Man is known as Rockman in Japan. This was changed in America because rock is well-known slang for crack cocaine, and the name stuck. That's funny. I mean, I wouldn't make that connection necessarily, but Mega Man does sound better than Rockman. I will be honest. The name Atari comes from the Chinese game Go. Atari refers to a situation where a stone or a group of stones is in imminent danger of being taken by another player, a state Atari ironically found themselves in when the brand was bought by a French company, Infogrames. The Xbox was originally named DirectX Box, as it was initially designed to show how Microsoft's DirectX graphics technology could benefit the console market. The Texas Instruments TI-83 calculator has more graphics processing power than the Commodore 64. Amazingly, some basic C64 games can even be programmed into it, which is pretty cool. I've never tried or seen a calculator, TI, whatever it was, 83, 63. I've never seen one that has games in it though. But cool. The original Devil May Cry was originally intended to be the next chapter in the Resident Evil series. The gun juggle move was a glitch, but became part of Dante's move set. Alien Hominid, a hardcore PS2 shooter, was originally a popular Flash internet game. It was downloaded more than 6 million times before being brought to the PlayStation 2. In the NES era, Nintendo had strict licensing rules in an effort to maintain quality control, hence the gold Nintendo seal of quality badges on the cartridges. Final Fantasy VII was originally designed for Nintendo 64, but Square canceled the project and moved to the PS1 because of the lack of space in the console's game cartridges. Final Fantasy VII would have filled 13 cartridges. And if you're old enough to remember this, the PS1 had discs. They were the first games that came, well, I guess it wasn't the first system. I guess the Sega Saturn was the first one, but it was one of the first where you could actually use a CD. I remember thinking it was so cool because I had a Nintendo 64 and a friend of mine had the PlayStation 1, and I was just like, wow, you can actually use CDs. This is cool. I felt like, he had a futuristic gaming system, and I had something in the past. So when I finally got a PlayStation 1, I was ecstatic. I got Spider-Man, a Spider-Man game, which is to this day I still consider to be a very good game. A lot of fun. To create the gruesome necromorph monsters in their game Dead Space, the devs at EA Redwood Shores studied photographs of car wreck victims. They also watched hundreds of horror movies to get ideas for in-game scares. Final Fantasy got its name from the fact that it was supposed to be Square's last ever game. They were struggling to become popular with dodgy games like Red Racer and World Runner 3D, and were going to bow out of the industry gracefully. And boy, were they wrong. 60% of all Americans aged 6 and older, or about 145 million people, play computer and video games. The average age of a gamer is 28 years old. I'm 26, so it's cool. The average age is older than me. I think, I think the reason that there is still relatively a stigma about playing video games as an adult is because we've never had video games. Like, video games really started to get popular in the 90s. That, in the 80s as well, to some extent. So, generations before us, they were never exposed to that. So, they don't have that experience of having their childhood connected to, this form of entertainment. So, they wouldn't understand, and it's not just a form of entertainment for children. We know this at this point. It's a stereotype that's, I think, dying, and it's becoming more and more acceptable for adults to play video games. And, it's a good way to, if you have kids, if you ever have kids, it's a good way to spend time with them. And games can teach you, logic and problem solving and all this stuff. So, can't say enough good things about it. Captain Commando was a sci-fi superhero who served as Capcom's mascot in its early days, but was replaced by Mega Man or Rockman after the Captain proved unpopular with gamers. Capcom's original name was Capsule Computing. The name Kratos, as in God of War, God of War's angry hero, is taken from the Greek word Kratos, which means power. The first game to feature multiple endings, depending on how you play the game, was Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest on the NES. If you bought the Shenmue 2 on Xbox, you'll remember the Shenmue movie DVD that came with it, containing all the major cutscenes from the first game. Well, in Japan, this was actually shown in some cinemas. Such was the popularity of Yu Suzuki's epic series. Midnight Club Los Angeles is the first game to feature branded trophies achievements, ones shamelessly sponsored by T-Mobile. Sonic the Hedgehog has appeared in 4 TV series: Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic Underground, The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, and Sonic X. He's also appeared in a comic book series. None of them are as good as the games. Yeah, obviously not. F-Zero X has an unlimited amount of courses. If you take part in the X Cup, the game will randomly generate tracks. They're mostly awful, but sometimes you'll get a good one. The Magnavox Odyssey, released in 1972, contained 40 transistors and no microprocessor. The newest Pentium 4 microprocessor contains 42 million transistors on the chip itself. The Nintendo N64 marked the first time that computer graphics workstation manufacturer Silicon Graphics Inc. developed game hardware technology. The Nintendo GameCube's proprietary disc can hold 1.5 gigabytes of data, 190 times more than what an N64 game cartridge can hold. And it's, it's crazy to see how we've made progress in terms of like our gaming systems, from, Pong to Call of Duty, Overwatch. It's insane what technology is capable now relative to back then. In the 1980s, a service called GameLine allowed users to download games to the Atari 2600 over regular phone lines. It was a commercial failure, but eventually formed part of the foundation for America Online, the world's largest internet service provider. And that's a whole other topic for another video. Silent Hill was originally a Silent Hill game, but rather a separate franchise being developed by Konami, simply titled The Room. When Silent Hill producer-composer Akira Yamaoka came across it, he decided to make it part of the official series. In its heyday, the Dragon Quest series was only ever released on weekends in Japan because midweek launches would see thousands of people pulling sickies to go and play it. Pulling sickies? I've never heard that, but I understand completely. I would take a sick day too. If, a game I really wanted to play came out, say no more. I would do it. the Atari Jaguar proudly boasted that it was the first 64-bit console, but in reality, it was two 32-bit chips stuck together. So, not truly 64-bit. Those liars. It's only humanly possible to press a button on a controller 16 times per second. This record was set by Toshiyuki Takahashi, a Japanese gamer. Challenge accepted. A game called Malice, starring singer Gwen Stefani as the titular lead character, was supposed to be a big budget system seller for Xbox. After years of delays, it was finally released at a budget price on the console and on PS2. Gwen Stefani's recorded dialogue was never used, nor was the planned No Doubt soundtrack. There's a full book you can read in Deus Ex. It's called The Man Who Was Thursday by G.K. Chesterton and shares some plot similarities with the game. The chapters were spread throughout the game in data cubes. If you cheated while playing the Sega 32X version of Doom, after the game ends, you're taken to a fake DOS prompt. You can't quit out of it, and the only way to escape the screen is to reset the console. If you did cheat, you get an extra cutscene. In the French localization of Final Fantasy 11, Zidane was renamed Dijdane. I can't pronounce that because of the similarity to the country's most famous footballer, Zinedine Zidane. Tongue twister. Satoshi Tajiri, the creator of Pokemon, got the idea for the worldwide Game Boy phenomenon after collecting caterpillars as a child and watching them change into butterflies. Yep. I think I knew that one already, but it's fascinating nonetheless. The voice of Shodan, the insane AI in the System Shock series, was performed by the wife of the audio director at Looking Glass. Cheaper than an actor, eh? Duke Nukem was one of the first games to employ a real-time audio effect to its sounds. If you went underwater, a calculated reverb was applied to sounds being played to make gunfire sound muffled and gurgly. In the underground facility in Resident Evil 2, there's a locked room containing a dead nemesis. Resident Evil 2 takes place after 3, which suggests Umbrella released more than one into Raccoon City. In World of Warcraft, there's a dungeon called Uldaman, where you can find and recruit 3 lost dwarves who look similar to characters from the Lost Vikings on SNES. Yeah, I'm not surprised. World of Warcraft does stuff like that all the time, where they make, pop culture references and references to other pieces of fiction, etc., etc. So they're pretty savvy like that. They like to make these references. The first Fable was originally going to have a multiplayer mode. 4 players, 1 hero, and 3 sidekicks would be able to work together to complete unique quests. This feature was cancelled in March 2004 due to time constraints. I can also imagine that people would be like, I can just imagine me and my friends sitting in 2004, right, and arguing over who gets to be the hero and who has to be the sidekick. I can totally see that happening. I'm going to be the hero. No, I'm going to be the hero. Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo took 29,000 hours to program. Luckily, it went on to sell 17 million copies and was the best-selling game of its generation. In the loading screen for the original Ridge Racer on the PlayStation 1, you could play a Galaxians-style minigame. If you destroyed all enemies, you'd unlock 8 additional vehicles. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was one of the first games ever to have a simultaneous worldwide release date. This was known amongst gamers as Sonic 2's Day. That's awesome. as it appeared in shops on Tuesday, November 24th, 1992 to be exact. Awesome. I didn't really start to play Sonic games until about 1986, I want to say. I was born in 1991, so 92, I wasn't, sentient or conscious enough to be able to play video games. I was a child, a small baby. Ico was originally meant to be released for the PlayStation, but the development was halted and then continued for the PlayStation 2. In the early version, Yorda had horns on her head, not Ico. You can easily find concept footage of this early on YouTube. The first Broken Swords game theme tune was composed by Barrington Falong, also known for writing the theme to Granny's favorite Inspector Morse. Fans of Master System classic Alex Kidd in Miracle World will remember the former Sega mascot munching a hamburger at the end of each level. Originally, this was a Japanese rice ball, or onigiri. It was changed because rice balls aren't as recognizable outside of Japan. They did something similar like that in Pokemon when they dubbed the anime. I think they were still eating rice balls, but they were calling it like peanut butter jelly sandwiches. It was the weirdest thing because I remember watching it. I'm like, that's not what a peanut butter jelly sandwich looks like. It's weird. Violent pedestrian squishing racer Carmageddon was only allowed to be released in the UK with zombies instead of people roaming the streets. In the Indian version, the cows were removed and it was banned altogether in Germany. The music for the first Jak and Daxter game was composed by Mark Mothersbaugh, a member of cult 80s band Devo. The composer of all of director Wes Anderson's films, including The Royal Tenenbaums and The Life Aquatic. If, for some strange reason, you still have Madden NFL 06 save game on your memory card, a special Madden van will be unlocked when you start up Burnout Revenge on PS2. The Metroid series doesn't take place in any kind of order, so the plot can be confusing. Chronologically, Samus's adventures take places as so. There's a lot of grammatical errors in this, so bear with me because I'm stumbling over it because my brain is trying to correct it halfway. Samus's adventures takes place as so. Metroid, Super Nintendo, Metroid Prime, GameCube, Metroid 2, Return of Samus for the Game Boy, and Super Metroid for the Super Nintendo, and Metroid Fusion for the Game Boy Advance. Makes sense? It does not. I'm very confused. In the first Max Payne, Max's face was digitized from series writer Sam Lake. But in the second game, they used an actor called Timothy Gibbs, who starred in ladies' favorite Sex and the City. At the end of the game, Civilization 4, players are rated based on their performance by comparison to 1 of 10 world leaders. The lowest rating compares the player to former U.S. President Dan Quayle. U.S. Vice President, Dan Quayle. I was like, who the fuck's Dan Quayle? Who is legendary for such wisdom as, if we do not succeed, then we run the risk of failure. I actually have to show you this. It says Dan Quayle. Loser. PC hit Grim Fandango was originally titled Deeds of the Dead, but was changed because LucasArts didn't want a reference to death in the title. In a game primarily about death, the afterlife, and the Grim Reaper. Yes. The secret of Monkey Island came with a code wheel copy protection system in which you had to mix and match the pirate faces and assemble their names. It was taken out of future releases as it proved too annoying. In Japan, insanely difficult shoot 'em up Ikaruga came with a DVD of the country's top players completing levels with unbroken chain combos and beating bosses in record times. People are freaking like insane, man. Like the shit that some of these people can do with video get to in video games. Blows my mind. Practice, right? But like, I just like the amount of time you have to put in to actually get that good. Blows my fucking mind. In Germany, copies of Medal of Honor Frontline had to be reprinted because there was a swastika on the back cover. The developers also had to go back into the game and take out all of the Nazi flags, other paraphernalia. Yeah, Germany's very, from what I've read, they're very sensitive about the Nazi stuff now. Because, they have a particular history with it, obviously. I don't need to fucking explain it. In the first Fallout, if you create your own character with less than 4 intelligence, you can't converse with anyone. Your only dialogue options are various grunts or other guttural noises. This makes the game insanely difficult to finish. That's actually kind of funny. The secret boss, Kurt Ziza, in the first Kingdom Hearts, was named via a contest held by Squaresoft in the US to promote the game. Brutal PC FPS Kingpin featured a boss called the Jesus, named after the character from The Big Lebowski. He even repeated some of the lines from that film, including the immortal "Nobody fucks with the Jesus." A commercial for horror game Siren was pulled in Japan. After complaints from parents, the advert featured a girl knocking on a window from the outside, begging her parents to let her in. The view then switches to the inside and shows the terrified parents in fear of their daughter, who is revealed to be a bloody zombie. Sony said that the fear factor made people uncomfortable. Whatever. Get over it. There's a difference between the Japanese and US versions of Resident Evil 4. It occurs whenever Leon is killed by Mr. Chainsaw. In the US version, his head is chopped off by the saw. However, in the Japanese version, it cuts off part of Leon's face. It cuts off part of Leon's face, exposing half of the front of Leon's skull and a single eyeball. The first game to go online when Sony's terrible PS2 network adapter was SOCOM, Navy SEALs. One of the player forms you can unlock in Res for the Beyond levels is simply Morolian. This is the name of the alien invaders from UGA's previous game, Space Channel 5. Thanks largely, we hope to being bundled with a Wiimote. WePlay has sold around twice as much Halo 3, shifting some 16 million copies. Many of the in-game sounds and even the main font in Streets of Rage for the Mega Drive were lifted directly from Revenge of Shinobi, and the Special Attack Police car was ripped directly from eSWAT Cyber Police. How lazy. More German censorship, this time Command and Conquer Red Alert. Hitler, who was key to the plot, was removed from the intro cutscene, and all of their soldiers were replaced with cyborgs. I mean, it's a game. Germany's stance on this is a little intense, I think. They will arrest you if you march with like Nazi memorabilia and flags and shit. Unlike the US where they let you do it, they will arrest you in Germany. So, StarCraft is the first computer game to have ever physically made it into space. It was sent aboard shuttle mission STS-96 on May 27th, 1999 by mission specialist Derry T. Barry, who is also a StarCraft fan. That's pretty cool. That's actually really cool. This is a Blizzard game, by the way. Same company that makes World of Warcraft. If you select a sheep 4 times in Warcraft 2, Tides of Darkness, keep clicking it with the left mouse button. The sheep will say Boram you. This is the sheep's password from the 1995 movie Babe. In the original Japanese version of River City Ransom, the characters wore schoolboy jackets and belonged to high schools instead of gangs. This was changed in the American version because jackets can be mistaken for bathrobes, and beating up evil gang members seemed like a more worthy cause. And there you go. We managed to get through over 100 facts, 100 video game facts, with me rambling. I had a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching this video. Please comment and subscribe. Hit the like button. Helps out a lot. Don't like to ask for it, but YouTube's algorithm makes it so that the engagement is very important. So if you can, please do so. And if you're already asleep, have yourself a wonderful sleep, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care, my friends. Take care.